Okay, welcome back. So after hearing Gavin, I thought this would be a good segue into, okay, so how do I do my symptoms, right? So in order to use German New Medicine, the entire process, what Gavin is doing right now for himself is you focus on one symptom, right? One part of the body, figure out, okay, have a client going, oh, I have pain. Okay, but where, right? What part of the body? What side of the body? What tissue, right? Gavin was like, oh, I realized that there's a sphincter and one is the smooth and one is the striated. So that self-evaluation is probably that second sphincter, et cetera. It's really getting to understand what is involved here, because that's going to give you a lot of clues and an understanding of what your body's doing biologically, even if the cause isn't biological, but what we believe is happening, the body is going to translate it as biology, a biological issue. As I said at the very beginning, getting physically stuck. There was a great, I'll share it in the community. There's a great story of a woman who had motor and separation conflict together linked, which together can actually cause a seizure. And it was because she was physically stuck in a sleeping bag with her boyfriend, and she could hear her mom, in the other room. And she was trying to get out. She couldn't get the zipper. She was physically stuck. But of course, for her, it was like, oh my gosh, please get me out of here. There was this urgency because she was so embarrassed, right? So it's find out the body part, find out the side, and then research what is the conflict theme according to German New Medicine, using the resources that are in that PDF that we've shared, the learninggermannewmedicine.com, the Psychic Roots of Disease book, and I put several others as well, so that you can understand what is the theme that is happening here so I can be more aware and detect what's going on, which is what Gavin was doing, right? It's like, I know it's something about territory. It's something about my stuff, my space, my, psychologically or physical space. And then understand the symptom you're working with. Is it an adaptation period symptom? So with bladder, oftentimes there's an urgency or there's a minor leaking in the conflict active in the adaptation phase. And in the healing phase, at the beginning, there might be some swelling as your body is healing, and so it might be harder to pee. And then at the epicrisis, halfway through the healing, there might be a total like dump out, right? And so you need to understand, where does my symptom come in this territorial, marking conflict, so that then when you start tracking step number 3, you're asking yourself, what happened before? If it's a adaptation, it's a conflict. It's like, what happened before that I got into conflict around a territory? And if it's, for example, the full release, it's like, what did I just resolve? Like, think about being in a car. In the car, you might have the urgency. When you get yourself out of the car, you've resolved it. Okay, I said I got to get out. I got out. Then you might have to deal with the epicrisis when the body wants to flush out, right? And so it's like, oh, yeah, I just resolved the problem. Now my body's going to do a flushing. And once you understand what you're looking at, then you can start doing what he was doing, which was just laying there and just noticing. I just noticed it. What was I thinking, right? What was I feeling? And what was even happening around the room? That radio, the ship thing, actually had something to do with it. And when you start doing that, you will find common denominators, common emotions. A lot of the work I do one-on-one is when a client's like, oh, I had a major exacerbation or even a minor one this week. I was like, ah, yay. Okay, what day? What time? What was happening right before? Let's go back to that time, because we want to find what is the motion, right? Because that is a big denominator and common to every single time it happens because it's always going to be the same. And then once you really know it, and I'll be telling you guys my story so that you can see, it's like once you understand, once Gavin knows, oh, it's this thing about control that I use it too much. And my body's like, oh boy, I know what this is going to do. It's like, how can I start playing with it, dance with it, doing a little different, right? Teasing it differently. Because if you can change the emotion you have around the situations that trigger you, if you can change the behavior, your body's like, we don't know what's going on with Gavin, but it's not the same. So it doesn't go into the program. It doesn't go back into the adaptation because you're doing it differently. Nothing is triggering the body. It's like our war veteran, um, like a different helicopter noise, maybe a small charter plane. It's not going to trigger his body. It's different. It's just different enough. It's still an element flying above him, but just enough difference, the body won't react again. Any questions on this process? And then I'll give you guys a few stories and some places to start practicing this.
I have a question.
Yes. Yes, can you hear me? Yes. Question.
If Why does it keep moving anyway? I said, what if the symptom doesn't change?
If you become more
Like you
aware,
don't know. It's just, yeah, like the arm always feels the same way, or the leg always feels the same way, or it doesn't do this. It doesn't do anything different. It just stays the way it is. So it's not like, well, what happened before then? Because nothing happened before because nothing happened. Like the
okay,
leg didn't go or the bladder didn't change. Nothing was different to
exactly. But think about what Gavin just said, right? So there's two pieces here. When it comes to the bladder, think about what Gavin did. He was in bed and he's like, it's silent. There's no one else around me. Why did my bladder just got set up? At first, you go like, there's nothing, 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 nothing. But as he just stayed there, or he stayed curious, and he goes, what else is here? My mind. I'm talking about shoulds. The radio is telling me it's time to get up, from childhood. The cats are meowing. I know it's time for me to do the right. And so that's what it takes to get to the subtleties. When it comes to the paralysis, that's a stuck conflict. Oftentimes it gets like a drop foot. It feels like it's always dropped. But I do ask sometimes my clients is like, has it ever kicked up? Has it ever done something a little differently? And oftentimes there's a moment, right? I just had someone in our previous workshop who was saying, oh, never have in my muscles of, upper legs or my buttocks always out. But that one day, Eva, when this thing was happening and my husband said this, I shot right out of my chair. And it was like, oh, those muscles engaged at that moment, didn't they? Yes. All right. What about that moment, right? Yes, today you can say, oh, but now they're always off. But I doubt it was always like this, right? As I said about my clients with 40 years, this is a drip conflict, right? This is something that was developing slowly. Now, one of the ways I propose to start using this work is don't start with that symptom that barely ever, that doesn't change at all. I would propose start with allergies because an allergy is a track. An allergy starts up identical to a track. I would say your body's right now allergic to certain things, allergic to pushing, putting your heels in, allergic to getting stuck, allergic to, to territorial, you know, uh, issues. So one of the great ways to start learning this and to start applying this is working with allergies. Because anytime we
And
have big or small conflict shock, right? Anytime we have that unexpected caught on the wrong foot moment that we didn't have a solution and we kind of lived it on our own and our bodies adapt. Our bodies also record everything that's going on. And that includes not only our emotions, our behaviors, it also includes what you were eating at that moment. It includes the type of pollen that's in the air. It includes the weather. I have clients that their symptoms go crazy when it's cold. And it's because their original issue occurred during the cold. And I have clients whose symptoms go crazy, certain ones, we have to figure out which ones, when it's hot. And it's because that conflict occurred in the summer, right? All of these elements, um, your body's reacting to them because it's trying to foresee a future danger by adapting quickly. So I would
so,
say in
and
this case, work on a different symptom first. Don't work on the symptom that's really hard because, like the drop foot, I always say that's advanced, right? Do that after you've already gotten a couple of other things, and you've already like, yeah, I figured this one out because it's a self-evaluation plus a motor at the same time. So you kicking yourself and telling yourself I can't is doing a big, it's that dripping, the everyday I can't. I can't get out of bed. I can't move my arm. I can't is actually continuing the drip. So it's constant. And that one will be harder. So start with an easier one. It's like when you learn to play the piano, right? You don't want to start with Chopin. You start with da 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 da. You start with simple elements. And one of those is allergies.
I,
So,
I, I, when you
yes,
say allergy, I don't have an allergy. So you're calling something else an allergy. What are you
a-
calling an allergy?
anything can be an allergy. Um, when a veteran his body reacts because a helicopter passed by, that's an allergy. That is his body overreacting to something that isn't dangerous. When a child's body goes into scratching because a cat passes by, that's his body overreacting because it perceives the cat as dangerous. So this past weekend, I was at a party and I was talking to someone about this, and she's like, "Oh, my son has an allergy to cats." And I said, "Well, most probably something occurred to him with a cat." I go, unless he adopted your allergies, because kids' bodies will perceive if a parent is has an allergy, the body will perceive that thing must be dangerous, so I'm going to have the allergy too. But in this case, she said, no, no, we don't have allergies. Only he has allergies. So he was right next to us. So we both look at him and we said, hey, what happened to you? Did anything ever happen to you with a cat? And he looks at it, he goes, yeah, I got bit by one, an orange one. I'm only allergic to orange cats, right? And it was like, and so then we just talked to him. He goes, what happened? What was unexpected about that, right? Because remember, it's a conflict shock. What was unexpected that caught you off guard? He goes, well, I'm in bed and the cat is walking on the bed. And so I pull to get the cat out and the cat bit me. He goes, I didn't realize cats would bite. That's how it started his allergy. So then we just told him, cats aren't dangerous. They rarely bite. And so we walked him to help him work with getting rid of that by just communicating to his body. That's not dangerous. A common one that people
Uh,
have are dairy intolerance. And I know you don't have an allergy, so I would propose finding another symptom, for example, the bladder, like Gavin. Maybe that one might give you.
the
But
bladder, I don't, I just, I'm in bed all the time. So of course I'm
okay,
going to
so
have to
that
go
one
to the
might be
bathroom.
hard.
So
Yeah,
I don't really feel it like
yeah,
a bladder.
yeah.
So
So yes.
I
So
mean,
in
I
your
have
case, we would
triggers.
need to
But,
look
mm,
at what element. So your case, we might not be able to use an allergy. An allergy, also means food intolerances. Those are allergies. So I have a lot of clients that'll say, can't eat gluten, can't eat dairy. And I say, only because it's associated. When you go to Europe, it's a different gluten. Your body just doesn't associate it. Not necessarily because that gluten happened to be better or worse, because I have clients in Europe that have gluten intolerance because they have an allergy to their gluten, but not gluten intolerance, and they come to the US.
I don't eat gluten because it's supposed to be misperceived by the body. I don't.
Exactly. But it's all,
I
but
don't have
in
it.
the,
I can eat gluten
exactly,
and not have anything. But
exactly.
I stopped
In,
eating it because they told me not to eat it
and
because
that's
the
one
body.
of the, exactly. And that's one of
I
the
mean, I can
reasons,
start eating it, but why would I if they say people
okay,
that? Yeah, I don't get it. Anyway,
exactly.
you
But
can
there,
go on. Yeah, yeah,
in
I don't.
in the framework of German new medicine,
Mm,
unless you swallow 5 gallons of toxins, and
mm.
then everybody would be intoxicated. Anyone who swallows a gallon of toxins would have toxins. If 80% of the population do not react to gluten and you do, you have a track concerning gluten. It is not the
I don't
gluten.
react to gluten. I don't
Good.
react to dairy.
Then
I was just told
good.
dietarily by people who
Yes.
have healed, don't
Yes.
do it because you don't, the body doesn't like it. I
Exactly.
don't know why,
In
but
German new medicine, we don't do those. We don't have black and white. It is listen to
right,
your own body. For example, Terry Walls grew up in a
right.
farm. She had a lot of childhood issues. What was surrounding her? Eggs, milk, right? So her body reacts to those things because she was eating those while she was having conflict shocks. And, like one of the things I was going to say is oftentimes people have dairy intolerance because as a kid, you're in on the dinner, you're at the dinner table, you're drinking your milk, and maybe dad had a very bad day and starts yelling, right? And that is enough conflict to then not be able to drink milk as well. I remember I told my sister about this. I told my sister about allergies because she used to have a ton of allergies. And I told her allergies are just allergies and intolerances. Okay. So think allergies, think food intolerances, think cream intolerances. Is your body associating that thing to a previous conflict shock? And all it's trying to do is protect you so that that previous situation doesn't happen again, right? I had a client who had shrimp intolerance, and he remembers that he was with his wife at this wonderful, restaurant, and she started having a discussion with him. And he was like, "Oh, please, please, please don't yell. Don't yell at me at the restaurant." And he was in this situation while eating shrimp. Well, that was the last time he could eat shrimp. His body really reacted to the shrimp because it didn't want to put him back into that same situation. So when I told my sister that allergies is actually your body protecting you, trying to protect you from something it perceives as dangerous, but in reality, cats, dust, pollen, dairy isn't dangerous if other people are fine with it. It's a track for you. She was like, "What? All these allergies I have, you're telling me that it's just my body overreacting?" And I said, yes. And then a couple months ago, she comes to visit and she sits on the couch. And I say, Delmar, careful because that blanket you're sitting on is our cat's. And I know from childhood she has a lot of cat allergies. And she's like, oh, I've stopped having allergies to cats. And I go, what? And I go, how? And she goes, Eva, because it's stupid to have an allergy to this. And that was it. She no longer had cat allergies because she goes, oh, that's stupid. Oh, I'm going to have cat allergies to this little creature here. So I wanted to actually, I just had this conversation last week. If Kristen's here, she was telling me, oh, after you told me that story, I also, applied this and practiced this on myself. So Kristen, are you here? Let me stop the share.
Yeah. Hi.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Yeah. That's so funny that she said it was stupid. I was like, exactly. So stupid. So yeah, we were talking about in one of my sessions, just at the very end, like just threw this out there, and that I have this pain when I eat dairy. Went through years of different tests and everything. Ultimately, a doctor said, "Oh, you just have a dairy allergy." So I was like, okay. So I try to avoid it for the most part, but kind of scared of it because the pain is intense. And so Eva explained to me about allergies and tracks, and that I couldn't correlate any kind of situation that would have made me respond to dairy this way. She said, "Oh, well, you really don't have to. You just have a conversation with, and butter especially is painful." So she said, just have a conversation with the butter, and just kind of talk to it like you're not afraid of dairy. Dairy is not dangerous. It's so I did that, and it wasn't even really that long of a conversation. I didn't even really think about it, but it's gone. The last couple of weeks, I have been eating dairy like I have no worry in the world, and I have had no symptoms. I had a little, but that could be like in the middle of a healing, like you're saying. But it's that my perception, I'm not afraid of this substance anymore. I'm not afraid. It's not dangerous. And so far, so good. I don't know what I didn't use any kind of uh intuition, like skill or anything. It was just like, oh, it's stupid to be allergic to dairy. How stupid is that? Okay, I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool.
And if you do this and you do have fear come up, it's like, okay, I need to work on that because my body is going to probably like butter. If as a kid you're eating a toast and mom yells at you, then fear plus what was on the toast is going to get your body to react. So
Mm.
anytime you have a fear and then, here comes the butter, the body's like, double trouble. And that will give you pain. So then it becomes self-fulfilling. So an allergy is a great one to kind of,
I,
start
you know,
using
I
this.
just,
So one last thing I wanted to share today. So any questions on allergies? I know some people don't have them, but any questions on the concepts? Allergy for me is just,
uh, uh,
it's an example, right? It's even with the body locking, like your body can be allergic to crossing the street. So every time you're about to cross the street and you hesitate, it's a street, it's a hesitation. Your body goes back to that time you crossed the street and you didn't do a good job. You fell and broke your leg. And so now every time you have that hesitancy and you're on the street, your body locks. That's an allergic response, right? That's a
but,
track. And so
but
making
Ava,
any changes in that is going to actually will shift that response.
can I just say what I was referring to? It says that research suggests that proteins in cow's milk, such
Yes,
as
exactly. Eileen, no, Elaine, sorry, because that is
well,
not German
so
new
that's
medicine.
why I know,
Exactly,
but that's why I stopped drink. That's
exactly,
why I stopped.
exactly, exactly. And the
But
thing about,
why would
exactly, I
I?
understand, I understand, I
Okay,
understand.
so why would I?
So the thing is, the difference between German new medicine and even alternative medicine, even functional medicine, is we don't make assumptions because all of us can. Anybody who has a cat allergy will say, well, it's the dander. The dander has da da da, and that is what my body's responding to. And we can always find a theory of why. But if just saying that's stupid makes your body stop having that, it's not the dander, it's a track, right? And I always say if you have the allergy, but not, or the intolerance, but not everybody, then there's an association there. Research, that's why that German New Medicine is a whole different paradigm. It is
Right, but
based
is
on
that?
listening
But
to your body, not listening to the research.
But does it
because
talk about myelin? Is myelin part of
yes,
it
yes, we actually
in
did a
German new
presentation
medicine?
just on myelin. We did a presentation called about your MRI. I can send it to you. Just on
But
myelin. And
but
it,
how? But that's the same
yes,
as to me when people that like Matt Embry, he they did the research with him and people, and
yes,
they said that it shows up that way, like
yes,
myelin shows up. So
exactly.
how
But
is it individual?
if you want, we
I
can
don't
have a
get it.
conversation. I know this is
Yeah,
such a different way of seeing everything. It does require, and Kristen has said, I think last time too, this requires time because it's breaking down all that we have been told. It's breaking down your immune system is not attacking. Your nervous system is turning off. It's breaking down the myelin is not being stripped because people can be on and off, on and off, on and off, and myelin doesn't repair that fast. It's a whole different way. So, yes, you're going to have a lot of questions as you go through this work because it's
I'm
very
just trying
different
to
and
find
it
a place.
requires a
I,
lot of change. So, thank you. Thank you for your input. But I want to continue to
I'm just
finish.
looking
We
for a
have
place to
Add
20 more
start.
something.
That's
minutes.
Can
all.
I add
I just
something? One
Yes,
second.
yes, Agota.
So I would like to add one thing. I
anyway.
recommend you, Helen, to listen to this book. I just finished listening and it's only 4 hours. It's called The Molecules of Emotions. How our emotions are actually more responsible of how our body feels. And I think this is exactly
I
the
agree.
example that
But
Ava.
I agree. But you're asking me to look at a symptom and start with a symptom. Anger
Yes.
is anger a system? System?
Is
I'm just
which?
very confused. Anger. I just don't know where to start to use any of this from from finding a symptom. Like
Think
I
about the
listened to.
first symptom you had. Start with that one because most of the other symptoms are a result of. Unless that symptom completely disappeared, and if it did, then you resolve that one. But think of a symptom, think of how that symptom was when it first started,
Okay.
because that is another place. You can start with a track. You can start with when a symptom first started, figuring out what was going on at that time. That's when that we call it
Mm-hmm,
the triggering event. And
mm-hmm,
then you can also take that and you can do a timeline, which is something we talked about maybe doing trainings or courses on particular tools of German New Medicine. You can take a timeline and go into your childhood and see where it started. And I think
yeah,
what I wanted to
that I
do,
understand.
yeah, what I wanted to do, but yeah, sometimes it's like in yours, tracks, working with tracks might not apply. But I can tell you this, something is dripping every day. For your symptoms
Oh
to
yeah.
be consistent, there is consistent triggers happening all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I
that is
agree.
a piece, right? So I always say it's like make a change, like go on vacation, go to Hawaii, and then check what happened to my symptoms, right? Because if that made a
Like
change, right? I had clients that, like, if they babysit other people's kids, they don't have their symptoms. But if they're taking care of their kids, they do. That gives you a clue, right? And so doing those experiments give you clues, right? I have symptoms in New Jersey, but I don't have symptoms in DC. Right? I have more symptoms in the winter than in the summer. Hmm, right? I had, yeah. In my case, interesting enough, if you remember, I started talking about I've had this major like foot screaming, right? It was like plantar fasciitis, but it was interesting. It wasn't in the back of the foot, it was the front of the foot and the arch. And I had it for 2 years. We talked about last week that I discovered, just like what Gavin was doing, I discovered the nuance was when I'm suffering, I'm doing something I really don't want to do. And I'm ignoring that. And instead, I'm looking for that lollipop. I'm looking for something to compensate, right? Um, what parent doesn't do that? I don't know about you guys, but anytime I had to go to the dentist as a kid, I always knew I would get a little teddy bear from my mom, right? She'd be outside and I'd get a teddy bear, right? And I was always like, ignore your suffering because, ooh, look at this shiny little thing, right? This cute little furry thing. It was always a present or ice cream, right? Or a cute little hair clip. Right before starting school, my mom would buy us a new backpack, so we would be excited, instead of talking to us about, is there anything about school you don't like? She was always like, look at your shiny new backpack and your new pens that have flowers on them, right? Rather than focus on, oh God, here we go again, going back to school. So here I am, I'm in my 50s, and I start having this excruciating pain every morning when I get out of bed and put my feet on the ground. I also noticed that I would get this pain when I'm at other people's houses, especially if they had hard floors. And I would get the pain if I'm running around my garden wearing Crocs for too long. All of those elements are seeds, are little tracks. It's like, remember, the tracks are elements that were there in the original event. Okay. So I finally figured out how to tie all this together. In this case, I had it at 36 years old as well, once, and it lasted me 3 days, and we'll talk about that one. But I took that all the way using this timeline method that we can do a class on. And I took it all the way to when I was 4.5 years old. And I thought, what occurred at 4.5 that was shocking? What occurred at 4.5 related to hard floors, related maybe to Crocs or rubber shoes? And I didn't know, maybe in the morning, because I said it was happening in the morning, so I wasn't sure. And what happened was at 4.5, my parents, we were moving. And so before the move, we went to visit my grandparents at their beach house. And they had the bright idea, why don't we leave Eva with the grandparents for a full month while they're still at the beach house, and we'll go and do the move without a little kid in the middle of everything. I want to tell you the year before, I'm an extremely curious little kid. So the year before, they lost me in this big market. So they knew my abilities to get myself into trouble. So they said, perfect, she'll have fun, at the beach house while we do the move. This is the first time in my entire life I was away from my mother. I'd never had a babysitter. And I didn't know my grandparents that well. And they spoke my mom's language. They spoke Spanish, but I wasn't very fluent in Spanish. In my household, I actually spoke Italian to everybody, but that's a whole different thing. And everyone understood my Italian because we were living in Italy. But of course, my grandparents did not understand my Italian. So I have these people speaking differently. I can't communicate and I don't know them very well. They'd only come to visit us a couple times. So my parents dropped me off, left me with two strangers. And these strangers, I'm 4.5, they're about their 60s, are hanging out with two other couples in their 60s this entire month, and 4.5-year-old me. That was a shock. But the problem was that I was miserable and I was suffering. And everyone, including my mom when she would call and my grandparents, but this is fun. You get to be at the beach all day. You get to then go to the swimming pool. You get to do whatever you want. It's fun. So I was relating, there's a suffering. I must ignore it and focus on the fun here. Interesting enough, I got allergies to all sorts of Spanish food as a result of this month because this is in Spain. But that's where it started, right? And what was interesting is all that summer, their apartment at the beach was an old casino from the 1920s converted into two apartments, one for my grandfather's brother and then my grandfather. So this was this ginormous, I would say, ginormous house with these extremely long corridors, all wooden floors. There's hard surfaces. And there was this one little pedal, it looked like a little car with pedals. And I would be pedaling as fast as I could. really hating the moment, but trying to have fun. And so here I'm at 50, the pain is right where the pedal is. What sets me off is hard floors. And I wore rubber shoes that whole summer, right? Because then you can go into the beach, into the water, out of the water, you don't have to take your shoes off. So what I noticed now in my 50s is if I went to someone's house and after half an hour and an hour, I'm done, but I don't leave, my feet start to hurt. But if they have hard floors to boot, the emotion, I'm really not having fun, but I'm trying to have fun and I'm overwriting that I'm really no longer having fun, plus hard surfaces, it could be like minutes that my feet all of a sudden start screaming, right? There's like double track, quicker response of the symptoms. In the case of the Crocs, what was happening is I love to study, but I also love having gorgeous gardens. And so I'd look at my garden going, oh God, I need to do that garden. And so, but it's like, oh, but I really want to just be here and study. And so I would go out to do the garden. I'd be wearing my Crocs, and I'd start doing the garden. But inside, I'd be like, oh, I really don't want to do this. This is heavy because I make rock walls in my garden because it's at a slope. And so I'm again suffering, but saying, oh, but it's going to be so pretty when it's done, and I'm using my little 5'2" self to move these ginormous rocks. So it's like the rubber shoes, I'm suffering but trying to compensate. Boom, it would be like half an hour and my feet would start hurting. But if I wore mountain shoes, all strapped up or construction shoes, I can go almost to an hour before my feet started because I would have the emotion, but not the track. So it would take a little longer for my body to go, oh, this is similar, boom, and start the adaptation. Now, as I said, when I was 36 years old, I had it happen once, this major pain. And what was going on is I was doing a construction site. I was working in London and, oh, it's London Airport, Heathrow, woo! I was suffering like you wouldn't imagine. It was horrendous. It was a lot. And my partner, my boyfriend at that time, was still working in another airport that we had done in Warsaw. And so I wanted to go on the weekends, every few weekends, to go see him because it would be fun. But going from London to Warsaw on a weekend in the winter is miserable, okay? Because you have to go I was living close to the airport of Heathrow, but you don't want to go through Heathrow, it's expensive. So I had to go to the cheap airports. So I have to go across the city, out of the city, go down corridors and corridors or hard floors of the airport to then get these flights to go to Warsaw just to have fun for a few hours, and then Sunday come back. What occurred was one of those weekends, walking hours and hours of these corridors to get to my flight got canceled. And the flight didn't come, they wouldn't have a new flight because it was snowing until the next morning. So this is Friday night. So I was going to arrive in Warsaw on Saturday and have to come back to London on Sunday. That night, when they told me my flight was canceled, and I'm like, should I just go home? Like, no, this is going to be fun. I'm going to go the weekend and, Juan will take care of me and we're just going to relax and he's going to make me wonderful food. And my feet started hurting. So I did go to Warsaw and my feet hurt the whole weekend. He massaged my feet practically the whole weekend. And the 3 days after, I had a crutch with me because I couldn't get my foot on the ground. It was so painful. By the end of that week, I called him and I broke up because I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. No more foot pain for 14 years. So like the guy I was telling you about the foot drop is, he made a change and it stopped in that moment. For me, I made a change. That was the hardest thing I ever did because I really loved him. But I realized I didn't know what was going on, but I knew my body is starting to break down. That's what I was feeling at that moment. And so I made the change. But now here I am in my 50s again. I had my full practice. I was writing an article for a peer-reviewed journal, The Frontiers of Neuroscience, to explain stress and how the body reacts and stuff. I was writing this with two other colleagues that were supposed to be experts in MS, and I was doing most of the work because they were like, "No, no, you know what you're doing." I didn't know what I was doing. I was doing that at the same time we were trying to turn in a grant for the MS Society to do research. I was actually miserable, but I didn't know it because I love doing this work. And what was happening and what I found out, and it took me about 4 months. It's like I was the same as Gavin. What could it be? Could it be this? Could it be that? I had just started learning German New Medicine, right? After about a year and a half of having this, I was like, ooh, let me test this on my feet, right? And so I was trying to figure out, okay, it happens right as I put my feet on the ground. And usually Monday to Friday, sometimes Saturday, but not always. So what's going on Monday to Friday? And I realized that every day when I woke up, I would start thinking about everything I had to do that day. And I wouldn't get up until I found the one thing that was going to be fun that day. And the minute I found that thing that was going to be fun, I honed in on that and I got out of bed. And the minute I did that, I activated it. My body said, no, you are hurting yourself. That's how for 2 years I was triggering it. And I thought I was motivating myself to keep going. No, I was triggering because I was ignoring that I was suffering. And once I figured that out, the first change I did was I figured this out in about December. And I thought, oh, damn, I'm doing this myself every day. That already lowered because I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about the day when I get out of bed. I'll journal afterwards. So that already started to make a change. And then when it truly stopped was the holidays. We had gone to Christmas dinner and my feet were screaming. And so I would sit so that my feet wouldn't be on the ground and that way they wouldn't scream. But I was like, I see. I see how I actually I can do an hour of 14 adults and 13 kids, but I can't do four. Right. And so I started negotiating also with my partner. I was like, whoever wants to go home first gets to decide when we're going home. It's not the other way around because he could be there for hours, right? It's his family. And so the next morning, I decided there was going to be a Christmas lunch, someone else's house, but also probably 14 adults and 13 kids or similar. And I said, you know what? I'm not doing that to myself. This is my holiday. And so I told him, I go, I do one night. I'm not doing 2 nights. I'm not doing 2 days in a row. I go, I'm staying home. I'm staying home in my pajamas. I'm watching cartoons and you go have fun with your family. And I felt extremely guilty. But that was the last time I had the foot pain. And so then as well, I cut back on how many clients I will see in a week. I said, we're not doing another grant. We got rejected 3 times. They always have some stupid excuse. We fortunately had already gotten with the journal got published in January, so we didn't have to do with that. And I started focusing on where am I suffering and what changes do I need to make? It stopped completely. However, this is like Gavin. This is like it's going to happen to you. 18 months later, my partner takes me, it's our anniversary, and he takes me to Monterey. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. But he takes us to an area that's super touristy. And I don't like touristy areas. It's like, it sucks me up. But I'm there. I'm like, oh, this is so sweet. The next day, we take a walk around, and the only thing you can see is these cheap stores with, the same keychains. And so inside, I'm like, you know, but I'm telling myself, oh, but it's so sweet. He took me out. We went on a thing. And so I start looking for an ice cream store, and my feet start hurting. And I'm like, did I walk too much? Of course, we all go into the same thing, right? Like we all go into, did I eat something? Did I walk too much? And then I go, wait, 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 wait. I'm suffering and I'm trying to compensate with ice cream. So I was like, no ice cream. And I said, John, let's get out of the tourist place. Let's go somewhere beautiful in nature. And so he's like, okay, I thought you liked this. I go, yeah, but not, no, half an hour, I'm done. So we left. We left. Feet pain stopped, right? It took me about half an hour to figure it out. That was a little more than a year ago, I think. Um, a month ago, it happened again. I was at a 60, someone's 60th birthday party, my partner's friend. And after the bar and everything, I was like, okay, I'm doing good. We had some fun. It wasn't suffering. But then a small group decided to go to this guy's house and continue the party. And as I've said before, I'm not a, I'm a morning person. I'm not a night owl. I'm not a drinker. So I'm at this party, people are just drinking and it's 11 o'clock at night. The floor was carpeted, but my feet started screaming. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really not enjoying myself. And the only thing that occurs to me is maybe I'll try a different type of alcohol, even though I don't like. And I was like, no, I'm going to have to bite the bullet. And so I was like, John, I'm going to bed. He's like, what? I'm going to bed. It's 11 o'clock. I know this is me. This is not I don't like this. He goes, okay. So I said goodnight. I said goodnight to the birthday boy, and I went to bed. And when I went into bed, I was like, ah, and my feet stopped hurting. And the next morning, because I went to bed so early, I was up like at 6 o'clock. We stayed at that guy's house. So it was an area I'd never, seen. And so I woke up at 6. Of course, my partner is, hung over and sleeping for hours. So I got up, I put on my shoes, and I took a 2-hour walk around this guy's town. I had a croissant. I sat in the sun. I had my kind of fun. And I had no feet pain. And I hadn't walked in 2 miles. I hadn't even tried, forever because I had gotten so used to just not being able to. And I was like, ah, I think I did it. That's how you use this. You figure out your patterns and you start making changes.
Just a quick question. Like, if you are in a place where you are having your kind of fun and you're enjoying yourself and all the circumstances are all right, but then your
Yes.
pain or your symptoms come out of nowhere, what does that mean when you feel comfortable and, like I said, the circumstances are right?
So two things can happen. Either you're in a healing phase, so it might be a healing phase of self-evaluation, so you have a little confidence boost, or this is what usually happens is the reason your symptoms are there is because you were doing something full on, right? You were walking around, da, 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 doing something, and your body's like, I got to keep her away from that. And today you want to dance, but the da, 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 reminds your body of that time. Your body's like, it doesn't realize that the dancing is fun and the da, 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 while you were stressed for work was the problem. It has linked it. So it might be that you're either in the healing of a symptom, so you need to check that out. Pain and healing is going to be a self-evaluation. It's like, did I just have a confidence boost? And if not, what you're doing is reminding your body. Think about this war veteran. He's having a great time with a whole bunch of friends and firecrackers are going on. His body doesn't care about the fun. His body's honed in on firecrackers reminded of danger. So for example, also if where you're having fun and having a good time is with your ex, and your ex is part of the situation that caused it, your body might be like, we're having fun now, but in 5 minutes, we know what happens. Right? I have one client, for example, her symptoms occurred when she was an intern as a medical student. And during that internship, she was already extremely stressed. Something occurred, right? So it wasn't the internship, but it was horrendous. That was the background. But then something occurred with her mom. Today, If she walks into a hospital or into a clinic, her legs lock up because that background stressor of the internship reminds the body of what happened with her mom. And it goes, this is the same kind of situation when that terrible thing happened, right? And that's going to cause it.
May I say something?
Yeah. Yes, Gordana?
I apologize. I'm from Serbia, so my English is not so perfect. I understand, but I not speak well. So, everything is about the stress. I agree with what Mr. I have to say, uh, sorry,
Gavin?
Gavin. Yes, I have the same problem from as I was a little child. I teach never say no. Always be someone who has to support the family. So how I grow up, I act this on the same way. And I thought maybe if I run away from that space, I will be free. So I ran away from Las Vegas and I lived there 15 years. But all the time I was physically there, mentally I was here spending money, sending everything to my mom, worry, I feel like stress, like somebody, like
Mhm.
some big animal is uh, uh, like want to catch me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was in tension, and I always has to, like on my, when I was, where I was working, I always has to like fight for right. I didn't feel the peace. So, okay, I find a way. The stress is the point, and my mom, my past, I have to change. I start to meditate. When I meditate, I feel better. When I was reading, when I was listening Joe Dispenza, I feel better.
hmm,
But now I'm coming. I come back after 4 years here. My mom got Alzheimer. She stopped me 10 times now, not to listen this video with you. So uh, I have MS a long time ago. I forget to say that I was professional tennis player. So any kind of pain or anything what happen when I feel like I'm tired, I always my conclusion was, oh, it's because I was playing too much. I was teaching so much. I never go to the doctor. So when the glass of water is like pop up.
yep,
I was down, wholly down. I have like a hug, like like to hold my body like electric something like a hug and so
yeah,
on. So I try to become. I suppose you heal yourself. But when I was researching everything about the MS, I find that till 95, 1950. There was a people who have MS and they treat them. They have a parasite. That's a
yes,
parasite. So they treat them with a different kind of medication. After 1950, they said autoimmune disease. How can our body attack ourselves? So another research, uh, everyone who have MS or every kind of autoimmune disease have Epstein-Barr virus
yeah,
inside.
yeah,
So and there is so I find some mushrooms. I will start with some mushrooms,
yeah,
and so on. But I feel like I'm running just in the same
exactly. This is the
cycle.
thing. Yeah, it's like there are so many theories. There's the theory, it's the immune system attacking themselves. There's theories, it's the lactose that's causing the immune system to attack. It's the theory of parasites. It's the theory of toxicity. It's the theory of Epstein-Barr virus. It's the theory. What I always say is those are all theories, and this can be considered a theory. consider this a theory, but I would say play with it. I don't need to prove it to you. Play with it. When you can eliminate an allergy, when you, like Gavin, can actually start influencing your symptoms by your emotion, then it's no longer a theory. It's a way of life. And so, yes, I always say, with Elaine too, it's like there are many theories. There are many theories of lactose. There are many us humans. I think I might have said, I had a boyfriend who liked to study fish, and I said, "Why are you studying fish?" He said, "Because it's impossible to study humans. They get in their own ways, right?" It's very difficult to pinpoint what causes what. However, this in the German New Medicine, it's like, this is something I'm sharing. You can see it in nature. And if you look and start, really getting awareness in the same way as Gavin's like, oh, it just happened. What did I just do? I didn't do anything. But wait a minute, I must have done something. If you start looking, it will prove itself, let's say.
Like being present moment, yeah?
It will
To
prove
stay.
itself.
Yeah.
Right. And for some people, like in my own family, of course, we always have this, right? My partner's daughter is extremely into functional medicine. There is no budging her, and I'm not going to try, right? Um, so it's like, but if you're like, "Ah, I think there's something more because I notice it, right? It's like, it can't be lack of vitamin D if I'm going to cross the road. And it's when I put my foot, off the sidewalk that my body blocks. There's got to be something there. And if this actually helps you figure out what it is and figure out the history and then figure out how to make that stop, right? Great. So yes, there is a lot of theories, and this one, it's like I almost say conventional medicine and alternative medicine too, including Chinese medicine. Start with the preamble. The body is broken down. Something is out of whack. Something is wrong. In German New Medicine, it's over here. The preamble is the body. You just went into a situation that was over the top, and the body stepped in to keep you safe. It did it intentionally. That is its own it is isolated to this. But as Agota says, Candace Pert talks about it, Bruce Lipton talks about this. There's psychoneuroimmunology relates this, mind-body medicine relates this, but this is a very different paradigm than what all of us have been raised in.
Yes.
So don't take it from me, practice it, test it, play with it. Gavin, did you have something?
Just going to say that I was diagnosed 20 years ago, and the consultant helpfully said that, oh, well, you'll be in a wheelchair before very long. There's nothing we can do. 20 years ago, I now take no medications. I'm actually stronger and fitter, and I'm healthier. My symptoms are actually disappearing. I haven't got rid of them all, but it's actually working for me. And it's the study and just observing what's going on in your body has no side effects at all. And I've got nothing to lose by giving it a go.
I love that. Can I just jump in and say something? So, I don't know if all of you know here, but we published a book 3 years ago. And at that time, I was all about diet. Like, if we read my chapter, at that time, I was 4 years diagnosed and I changed my diet. I got better a little bit, but I still was struggling with symptoms. Now, we are actually working on the second book, and the reason I started working on the second book is because this is not the complete story. Diet is not enough.
I
And not
see
only
that.
not enough,
Yeah.
but the emotions, the German new medicine, all these connections inside of us, our past, everything just Gavin shared and Eva was talking about, it's being aware of what happened and what's going on in our bodies. And I did have a spiritual awakening, and everything is all connected. We have to understand ourselves in order to understand our symptoms and in order to feel better. So that's why I was very excited to bring German New Medicine to our community and learn more, because the more we know, the more we can connect the dots. I'll give you back, Eva, to finish the call
Yeah,
because we are
yeah,
already.
yeah. No, and this is all I wanted to, for our course. This course is about reading, right? This course is a beginning. Um, then it's about exploring. And as I mentioned, you can work just on the tracks and make any change. The track will change. I didn't have to deal with my 4.5-year-old self and the trauma I went through. I just changed my track. I literally didn't make myself suffer and give myself a lollipop. I was like, suffering, no, not doing that. I'm allowed to not suffer, right? And I changed my track. I stopped the symptom. So you can stop the symptom by modifying tracks. You can stop the symptom by understanding what started it. I mean, your original triggering event, which of me probably was at that 36. Or you can also stop the symptom by taking it all the way back to childhood and understanding the beliefs and behaviors that were formed that caused you to then set everything up for a little extra problem to get your body to become allergic to that issue, right? To that behavior. So what I was talking to Agota before we started today was what's next, right? And so I will be doing this same kind of presentation. I hope each time that I can break it down more and more simply, and I can give you guys more
Yeah.
stories to really understand and see it. But I also want you guys to be able to go further. So we were talking about doing a monthly training or course in which we focus on self-evaluation, or we focus on ways to work on those childhood things, right? Methods, or we focus on I always say genetics is transgenerational. We focus on my grandfather's the first one who suffered, maybe, or, we find different ways to start utilizing German medicine and to get into it even further.
I was just thinking, while during this call, wouldn't it be more specific for our purposes if we focus on symptoms like bladder issues or MS hugs versus
Yeah,
what you just mentioned? Because this
yeah,
way we can all connect. We all have different symptoms, so that would be, I think, more interesting for everybody here to learn.
perfect, perfect. We will work on the agenda. And if you guys ask the questions, hey, can you say more about this or more about that? Then we can create those specialized, webinars, specialized courses to really look at specific pieces.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Thank you very much. I love it. And I have just one question about
Yes.
this heat. Um, do you think that heat problem could be because of I was smoking lots of years. I was smoking cannabis, and right now I stop in January, and I feel I feel tiredness when it's go hot. I so much more tired that before in winter, maybe,
Mamma,
do
voi sa
so,
osteoartrite e multiple
Yeah.
sclerosis.
So it sounds like I have like two questions, and correct me if I'm wrong. One is, does the cannabis or does the smoking, did I do something wrong? Not everybody who gets diagnosed with MS smokes or has MS, right? Or has taken cannabis. Now, this could happen if during that conflict shock, during your year from hell, and then something occurred during that terrible toxic relationship that you had to run away from. One of my clients, actually, this is her example. She had to run away from a toxic relationship. She had been strategizing, but hadn't done it, right? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then he starts talking about marriage, and she's like, oh shit, I definitely got to get out, right? So she waited until he was on a work trip, and she left. She moved 700 miles away. And that's when her symptoms started. But it was the symptoms of the healing, right? But then she keeps triggering because she's like, what if he finds me? In her case, while she was stressed about, I got to leave him, she picked up smoking as a coping for the stress. So today, if she smokes, when she only does when she's stressed, stress plus smoking, 2 tracks, sets off her symptoms. It's not the smoking. It's the
Yeah.
track because the smoking was in the background while she was going through this toxic relationship that she was physically afraid of leaving him. It wasn't just mental. She was physically afraid for her life. And she was smoking. And so her body says smoke related to danger.
Understand,
Yeah.
understand. I was following this track, and um, I got good friend, and he was my roommate, and he committed suicide, and I was smoking with him cannabis, and after I don't know after his death, it is 2 years, maybe 3 years, I start to noticing heat intolerance. But I don't know if it is because of it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the heat intolerance can be one of two things. The event occurred in the summer, so heat is, an issue. Or the summer, for example, one of my clients, her mom threw a hot pasta at her at one time, and so her body really has a terrible, negative influence of heat. It goes into, what's going to
Mhm.
happen. That can occur, and as well, every, when there is heat, it will actually crank up any healing symptoms. Remember, we have, adaptation symptoms and breakdown symptoms. Adaptation symptoms, the body's actually colder. And so if we take a cold shower and we're dealing with adaptation symptoms, it'll actually make them worse. If we take a warm shower when we're dealing with adaptation, they'll feel better. They go down. But the opposite, in the healing, think about when you cut yourself. If you touch that area, it's hot. If you put a hot pad on a cut or a hot pad on a broken ankle, it makes it where it swells more, right? The immune system gets more active. If you put cold on it, it calms the healing. So if sometimes the heat intolerance is because the symptoms you're dealing with mostly are all healing symptoms, and so heat just raises those symptoms, right? Jacks them up. But that happens to everybody, right? If I have a symptom of a shoulder, if I have a symptom of a stomach and it's in healing, which is stomach pain, that heat might make it worse.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
But cold ice actually makes it better, right? It's like, test that. That's one of the ways you can also figure out if you're in healing or in conflict is sometimes just with, cold showers help or they're worse. Hot showers help or they're worse, right? Because it
I
will
love
jack
cold
up.
showers. I love.
Yeah, see? So you have healing symptoms. So cold showers calm those down, and hot and heat just makes them more active. Same as when you cut yourself, when you're healing, putting it under hot water doesn't feel as well as putting a cold pad on an injury.
I know, Martin, you are definitely in the healing phase.
Thank you.
I know that.
All right. So, yeah, we'll notify you of any workshops more we do, and we'll probably do the same workshop if you want to recommend this to anyone. We'll do the same sort of workshop in September again, because I do recommend you guys listen more than once. This is, as I said, this is a different ballpark, right? This is what we're all used to. It's toxins. That's what I overdid. And this is a different this is a different game. It's very different, and it takes a while to even get used to the language. So I'm formally trained as a medical hypnotherapist. So I will say, as a hypnotherapist, persistence creates permanence. So listen again. Each time you listen, some other nugget, something else will fall into place, something else will make sense, and experiment. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to say, experiment, right? All research is experimentation. Be the experiment and find out what your body is actually trying to do for you.